This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, James Anderson of Sinclair Sports Medical Center. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The audience doesn't know that we've met before and we've been watching you from a distance. I love what you do. The audience knows I'm big into fitness, big into sports, and really been a client of your world for many, many years. Have had many injuries. Know that you're involved with the Barry Bay Cats and super involved with the community. So all good stuff. Really interested to peel back the layers into that. But for the people that don't know or need a reminder, let's start from the top. What is Sinclair Sports Medical Center?
So we're a wellness clinic. I myself am a chiropractor, but we have massage therapy, physio, and athletic therapy. We do have a part-time personal trainer in here as well. And then most recently, we've added a golf simulator into the office. So what we've been trying to do with that is we've had a league on the weekends, and we've also, myself at least, have been trying to work with people with their swings and trying to watch them swing, and then we can treat from what we see and immediately go retest. So we're, just trying to make people move better, feel better, and have less pain.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you guys got I love your place. It's very inviting to start, as I've been to some chiros and physiotherapists centers, and some of them, not all of them, there's many great ones in Barrie, but some of them feel like institutionalized almost. They feel like, the same feeling I get from a hospital, whereas yours is like you guys got a nice gym in there and a bunch of very interesting tech for me, as I love the tech. And you guys put me through, I forget the gentleman who did it, but he really put me through the paces when we went to your gym. So it was great, to your center. And before we get into that stuff, not only do we want to help promote businesses on the show so that the audience can get to know their local community better, understand how many great businesses there are right down the street, maybe stop buying from Amazon so much, these types of places, and learn from the educators as well, rather than go to YouTube. It's like some of these people are willing to pick up the phone and really tell you some great stuff down the street. So let's pour some of that attention back into the community. But we also love to educate, is a big thing, and learn about people's story. Like, I find human beings fascinating, and we all have this great story. I look at us like a very rich and deep book that, I try to peel back as many pages as possible. So I'm interested in yours. What led you to saying to yourself, this is the road that I'm going to go on? Health, fitness, wellness, and, the body, essentially the amount about the body. There's probably only a fraction of people on the planet that know that. And then deciding that you're so into it that you're going to start your own business, because that's a whole different decision. Entrepreneurship is tough, and you got into health, wellness, and all of that, and started your own business. So what led you to that point, James?
Well, how much time do you have?
You got a bit of time.
Perfect. Because it really, it started back when I was in high school. I wanted to be a medical doctor or, go down that pathway. But as you mentioned, I still played baseball at the time. And I went to play Division II baseball down in the States. And my grades were good, but when you're competing against med students, that's all they do. And then they volunteer on top of that. I didn't want to take the chance of going into the lottery system of those medical schools. So I started looking into physio and chiro and all that kind of stuff, because it's still down the same pathway of helping people and making them better in some way, shape, or form. And my dad asked me a very simple question when I was applying to schools. And he goes, what can a chiro do that a physio can't? And I go, adjust. And he goes, okay, what can a physio do that a chiro can't? And I go, nothing. And he goes, really? Okay. And he walked out of the room. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to chiro school. And it was one of those simple decisions where I hopped in with both feet and never really looked back, because I knew I was going down the right path of helping people, making sure that I could still educate people when I wanted to, which I still do every single day, which is my mom's side of the family. And
the educator.
She's the educator. Yep. She was a grade 8 teacher for a long time and retired a few years ago now. So I got that teaching side from my mom and the business side from my dad. And when I went to chiro school, I didn't really see myself ever really wanting to work for somebody else. That's more my dad's side of things. And I was very fortunate to be able to purchase a patient base right out of school. And then 3 years ago or so now, we opened this place up. And again, haven't really looked back. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you really are the culmination. I imagine there's some uniqueness, as we're all our own unique individuals, but dad, mom, big part of who you are and the path you've taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think planted that seed? Because I'll start with the question. I'll provide a little context. What do you think planted that initial seed, or maybe it was many little seeds over time, your environment, nature and nurture, and on all that, the mentors that you had at a young age, probably to some degree, but wanted to really dedicate your life to helping others? I mean, we talk about it, and most philosophies and religions talk about it, but we really spend a lot of time thinking about ourselves, and that's logical. I can only live my own life. So for me to focus on my wants, needs, and desires, it's like, yeah, no brainer. I can't really focus on your wants, needs, and desires all the time and live a great life myself. But it does seem almost counterintuitive in a way that something programmed us. I don't know, God, creator, something to release these phenomenal chemicals in our brain when we help people. But until you've been taught that, or you've done it yourself, you may not know. There's a lot of selfishness out there. I've spent more than half of my life being selfish, being 37 now, probably started to learn those things mid-20s, and now pour a lot of effort into helping other people. But really, you could even say that I'm doing that selfishly because it makes me feel great. But I had to get to that point, and I needed a mentor. So I know the time of my life when that seed was planted, because I had big goals for my life. And my mentor basically said, you have to start helping people more, pouring more effort into it. If you really want to live that kind of life, then you have to pour more effort into other people. And I'm often curious is, how did somebody spends their whole life? I mean, really, I know you're making money and you're probably enjoying it, but most of your life is spent selflessly giving to others. What made you get to that point?
I think what you said earlier of like, there was a bunch of different seeds that were planted rather than one singular event. Cause to go down a few of them. I mean, I've been a tutor for people through high school, through chiro school, all that kind of stuff. And, again, it's like you said, there's air quotes, no selfless, good deed. And yeah, those things helped me as well, because if I can teach somebody that information, whether that's the human body or math or whatever it is, I understand it better as well. Right. But to see them succeed and how, it does bring you a lot of good joy, and it's infectious. And I think I got to see that through my mom as well with her teaching stuff. But realistically, I think part of it comes down to, I've always been part of a team as well. And so in baseball, especially, it's the most individualized team sport where you can be really great, but your team sucks. And doesn't matter if you have one good guy, you need 9 to win a game. And so if I don't help my fellow teammates out, then I suffer as well. And I think that comes back down to, if we talk about the evolutions of humans and stuff like that as well, where we were designed to be social and supportive creatures. I've recently been just watching Alone on Amazon Prime. And the one girl right now, not to give any spoilers away, but she's about to tap out because of the fact that she does not have her team with her. She's doing phenomenally by herself. She's living 75 days in the wilderness of Northwest Territories, but she is now struggling with the mental side of, I can't help and I can't get given any help either. And we just kind of naturally as humans need to help each other out, or else we just don't survive. And it's kind of a simple fact that it comes down to it. But So yeah, to really go back to your question, I mean, like, I think it is a bunch of different planted seeds along the route that, you kind of get that, like you said, those good, endorphins from helping. And it's a bit addicting in a way, right?
It really is. And that's why I asked that question. I mean, I didn't know you're going to go down the evolution path, but that's fantastic because I'm very interested in that. And maybe some people need to hear that. I do believe for the vast majority of us, we're hardwired for it. And when we don't tap into that, it's almost like we're moving out of alignment and we suffer. That's when depression can come into place, isolation. And we saw that during COVID. So, for the people that are listening, give it a try. Imagine they have. And the best people that I follow in my life, the people I'm trying to emulate, they are all huge givers in some way. And most of them will be honest, be like, it just makes me feel awesome, man. Regardless of how they interact with the giving, maybe they don't like it, maybe they do, maybe they don't even notice it, but I feel good from it. And I'm just, it's just interesting because you started at a young age, tutoring and all that. You tapped into something young. Whereas I was very superficial, late teens, early 20s. I wanted girls, cars, and I wanted to be really big in the gym. I was bullied as a young kid, so I thought if I get big, and I played hockey as well, and I was hit hard. I was the goal scorer. I was fast, but I could barely take a hit and didn't give one. So I thought, get big, superficial, girls, cars, money, that kind of stuff. And it just went the opposite way of what I expected. It wasn't until helping others that really made a difference. And that's when I became a personal trainer. And that whole thing is about helping people. So it's a very interesting story. I appreciate you taking down that path. And the comment about alone, like 75 days is wild. But it makes sense. It's like, what am I doing this for? If there's nobody around, I hope it ends soon and she gets her money. I think that's where alone ends. But life seems pretty meaningless when you don't have people to share it with.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Myths and misconceptions, education piece on chiro. So you educated me on this. So I'll start with my experience with you. Is I went to physio and chiro at the beginning. I busted my leg under a squat rack, 22, something like that. It didn't break. It was dislocated pretty bad. I actually think it was worse than a break is what the doctor told me. But anyways, it put me out of commission. And I went to chiro and physio. And through those experts, I don't know exactly who, but eventually the seed was planted in my mind that chiro you are going to go to forever. There is no ending, whereas physio will fix the problem. And I lived with that thought until I pretty much spoke to you. So I don't know, 13 years that was in my head. So I don't know if that is true, if that is true about some chiropractors, if that may be true about some physiotherapists, or if you just need to get the good version of physio and chiro, and they will both treat the root issue. That's a misconception that was really important for me. I'd love to learn more about that and anything else you want to share to the audience to help them make better decisions with more accurate information.
Yeah, for sure. Well, to touch on the one you just mentioned with, the once you go, you'll never not go back. It's one of those things we've talked about through chiro school, and, they were prepping us for that from day one, it felt like. But the way I always refer to it is it's not that you have to come back. It's that you want to come back. Because what ends up happening is, again, if we take it from a business model perspective, it's great because it keeps bringing people back in. But even going back to the helping people side, we're finding a new 100% for people. Is the way I like to put it, because what ends up happening is when I walked into chiro school, I felt good. I felt like I was, strong, healthy. I felt like I was more flexible than the average human. And I walk in, get my first adjustment, and I walked out feeling taller, more mobile, and somehow better. And I was like, wait, there's another level? So that's one of the things I always bring up is that you're not really, it's not that you have to come back, it's you want to come back. And the other part of that comes into is that people beat themselves up daily and they don't really realize they're beating themselves up. Just because you sit at a desk for 8 hours doesn't mean that's not stressful on your body. Mm-hmm. Again, we're designed to move. But with that being said, you find that place where, that's where when I preach maintenance to people, it's the fact that I'm trying to take care of small issues now so they don't become big issues later. So take your example for your example with your knee. If, for example, maybe you saw somebody before that injury, potentially we might have caught some sort of tightness that was causing a imbalance on one side of your knee versus the other, and potentially could have prevented that dislocation from occurring. No way to know now, obviously, but there has been cases where it does actually, you see, that's why there's pre-rehab before a surgery.
Right.
It's because we know now that if we strengthen and take care of our body before a big event, we're going to be better for it after the big event. But yeah.
And it's, I'm going to make a example here to what I do in marketing. Cause I should have thought about it this way, but that's why you talk to people. I just wasn't aware of these things. What business struggles, right? And we talk to them afterwards, like you use my knee. So I struggled with the knee, a business struggles to grow, they're going downhill. And it's like, well, maybe if you would have done this before, we could have mitigated the blood flow, essentially the damage. And you may have even been better off or significantly better off. Whereas with me too, I look at that, many business owners look at it as an expense. Whereas it's like, no, this is maybe one of the greatest investments you could put into your business. And I looked at coming to you guys as an expense. Whereas just from that statement right there that you explained in 2 minutes, now it's an investment in my health. The same way I eat, the same way I work out, those things are no brainers to me because I've conditioned myself through listening to experts and being in the industry for 20 years. But your part of the industry was like, I don't know. It just was like, do I need this? Can I not take care of myself? Am I not treating myself well enough? But the fact of the matter is I don't have your eye, I don't have your skills, and I don't have your expertise. So there is probably some damage to a certain extent, no matter how well I'm living, that I'm building up, just like putting miles on your car. So to keep that car rolling long-term, you need to maintain it and not wait until it breaks. We all know that, I think, but man, do we ever wait until the last minute? And it's probably true because at the end of the day, for me in particular, that was a regular squat. It was heavy as shit. We were doing 5x5. So I was lifting a lot of weight at the time. I was young and strong, unlike now, old and kind of beat up. But there was nothing crazy about it. It wasn't a new movement. And when I got down into depth, knee buckled, and probably something was there prior to that. So we should really look at it as an investment into our health. We want to live our best lives. We need help from the people that can make sure our body is just moving correctly.
Yep. And it's little things that, like, sometimes it's, you take your example with yourself, and that's like a big, we'll call it a big injury. It definitely is. Yeah, it definitely is. Don't get me wrong. But you think of, there's some people that I've met where they don't realize that they can't turn their head. And it's until they finally, I can't check my blind spot without fully rotating my body. That's when they come to see me. And it's like, if you had noticed the little changes as you went, we wouldn't be starting from, we have 10 degrees of motion. Now we're trying to gain 80. No, it's, we lost 10 degrees and we're trying to gain that back.
Right.
And it's those little things that, again, we don't really realize that we're doing, the slightly forward head posture as I'm sitting here right now and trying to talk into a microphone. And, or I know I give the example of my dad driving like this in the car half the time, and he wonders why his left shoulder hurts. It's, and those things are the things that I see that everybody else, once I point them out, they're like, oh crap. Yeah, I do that, don't I?
Right.
And I'm like, yep, yes, you do.
Yeah, because you've developed an eye for it, right? So you have a level of awareness for human bodies that, I don't know, 99% of people in the public don't have. I mean, how many chiropractors are there out there that are good in the actual population? I imagine it's a very small fraction. And I think, certainly from my perspective, over going to a lot of physio and a lot of chiro over the years and being in the fitness world, the development of my own self-awareness has gone up considerably because of experts like yourself. Now, I'm nowhere like you guys. Obviously, I still need the help, but I'm able to identify. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that pain in the elbow from my wrist flexors from a couple of years ago. Okay. Now it's starting to flare up a little bit. Don't let it go to the point where I couldn't do bicep curls or side delt raises. Go now. And so through the expertise of you guys, I've learned more about my body and probably staved off some injuries by going back a little bit earlier and looking at it as this is just part of, if I want to live my best life, I need somebody who has knowledge that I don't possess to just take care of these things.
Yep.
Rather than an expense. Go once something's broken, which I think many of us do, even with our cars, with many things. It's like, I want to keep as much money as I can right now. It's not that big of a problem. I can deal with it. But that problem is building up to where now you have to change your transmission or stay out of the gym for 6 months when you could have mitigated that. Is that typically your prescription for people? Do little bouts regularly rather than this one big thing that can set you back a ton of money and a ton of time?
Totally. I mean, it's one of those things where, especially in Barrie here, a lot of people want to use up their extended healthcare benefits and stuff. And I tell them, okay, the average right now is about $500 that people get covered for
per year,
which is really not a lot. That roundabout gets you about 10 treatments over the course of the year. Now, some people, they want to save it up for the potential injury that they get.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you do that, now we're going to use all 10 of your treatments in a month and a half, maybe 2 months, depending on how bad the injury is.
Right.
Or we can kind of have 10 treatments spread over the course of 12 months. And now we get that, we're nipping things in the butt quicker and you're staying healthier longer, you're moving better. And then we're also, by doing those, I'm educating them as well on, hey, this is the thing that's going on right now. Try this stretch while this is happening. And you're getting tidbits as you go. We'll give the example of, changing your oil in your car. If your mechanic told you why it was important every single time, you'd be more apt to go get your oil changed as soon as it says, rather than, oh crap, I'm like a couple thousand over right now. I should probably go get that, fixed. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, I've got a big trip coming up. When's the last time I got my oil changed? Now, most people don't take their bodies like a car, but it is a great analogy because we take care of our cars better than our bodies sometimes. And I always joke I should have been a vet because we take care of our pets way better than ourselves.
Way better.
But yeah, so it's kind of one of those silly things where, we're trying to, like, that's why I like what I do as well, is because I can educate people, where I'm trying to say, like, this is why it's happening. Now, you don't have to see me if you're doing the right things at home, but 9 times out of 10, even if you're running a perfect lifestyle, which nobody is, you're still going to need treatment. I forget what the guy's name is now off the top of my head, but he is obsessed with trying to make himself younger.
I know. I don't know him. I see him all the time.
Yeah, I forget what his name is now, but and I'm sure, I've not heard of him saying this yet, but I'm sure he's getting some sort of treatments. I know he does like red light therapies and stuff like that.
Does everything. It's like $2 million a year to keep him as young as he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we're like, obviously he's the extreme level of trying to make ourselves better. But even if we take some of what, he's been doing, and apply it to ourselves, it's a no-brainer to try and find different ways to make yourself better. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I love science. I'm not a scientist, but when they talk about reversing your biological clock, it's like, I don't know about that, but definitely slowing down the apathy of your biological clock. Like, the average 50-year-old should look and feel like this, but now because of doing these things, you're feeling like the average 40-year-old at 47, at 48, whatever it is. So I'm curious about this question. You don't know about any of the injuries I have right now. A little bit in the shoulder rotator cuff, that on the side of the elbow. I don't know if that's tennis elbow, or the other one, golfer's elbow, whatever that is. But I'm an athlete. I'm 38. Spent a lot of time in the gym, lift a lot of weights, like bodybuilding style. So a lot of going to failure, pushing myself a fair bit. And then I do a fair bit of cardiovascular activity as well. Try to eat well, try to sleep well, try to keep my stress down. I'm trying to live as well as I can for as long as I can. So no major injuries. What is like, just for me to get the most juice out of life from your end of the spectrum, if I said to you, James, I just want to live the very best that I can for as long as I can, how much physio should I do with you? How much chiro should I do with you? Is there anything else I should do with you? What would be the prescription? What would be the program for something like that?
So for somebody like yourself, who, like you said, you're doing a lot of good things outside of the clinic, it's really going to come down to what is your body telling you during that particular time? Because I always prescribe, we're going to listen to your body, because your body knows itself better than I will ever know it. Okay. Because every body and everybody is different. And so for yourself, like, I would probably start, maybe in the once a month kind of realm, and then we adapt from there. So with that, and that can vary from month to month. Maybe, you're training a little harder for a particular event you want to try and do, like a bodybuilding, competition or something like that. Mm-hmm. We're probably going to see each other more often because you're going harder in the gym. Or, maybe we're taking a step back, we're giving our body a little bit of rest, and now our body's feeling pretty good day to day because we're not going as hard in the gym. Well, now maybe it's every 2 or 3 months that we're seeing each other. So there's no, like, I never like to give a set time for people to come in. I like to word it as, I'm giving you a suggestion for the next time you come in, because ultimately, if you're finding, what's the right word I'm looking for? But if you're finding, we'll say, success from treatments, meaning you're feeling better, you're moving better, you see the benefit, likely your body's going to know when the next appropriate time that is to be. So if I say, oh, come in next month, your body might go, actually, well, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to go to, 5-6 weeks and see how that feels. And then you're going to go to the 5-6 week mark and go, oh, nope. Should have been in a month because I did X, Y, or Z. So it's a very long-winded answer to basically say, likely I start at once a month, and then we kind of adapt from there. If that makes sense.
But really good information for me. I love that you base it on, your body is, everybody's different. So there is no cookie cutter prescription. That said, I feel like my body is probably starting to give signals before I'm aware. Like we have to know our level of self-awareness, and I think it can always get better. I think it's a spectrum. It's not like, are you self-aware or are you not? It's more like, how self-aware are you? And I've spent a lot of time in that realm, and probably still my guess would be, 5, 6 out of 10. I imagine there's a lot of awareness to go. So to make, for someone like me, because I have a pretty rigorous schedule and I like it that way, whether I'm feeling really strong or feeling a little weak, I just still make sure I go to the gym 5 times a week, rather than I want to peel it back this week a little bit or listen to my body and go harder. I just get in there and I may work out a little lighter or work out a little harder, but I have my schedule. So it's nice for someone like myself, and I imagine there's many people out there, that as long as we know I'm getting the minimum effective dose, I see James once a month. Unless there's something that there's some type of conflict, push it out a few. But is there that minimum, like if you're doing these activities at least this amount, you're probably pretty good? Would that be that? Unless there's, major injuries, but somebody like myself who wants to maintain and get better, like you said, a new 100%. I love that idea. And no one said that to me before. If I were to do this once a month, again, without any unforeseen injuries or catastrophes, am I maintaining myself pretty good?
From what I've seen so far, yes.
Okay.
That might, and I say it that way because there's always something new that comes up, right? Whether that's in science or in practice here, there's always going to be a new thing. And so far from what I've seen, if we kind of stick around that once a month realm, it gives us at least a good starting point. Where, like you said, if you go a little harder or not harder, we can adapt if we need to. And, if something does flare up, typically it goes away faster with that kind of stuff. When you're already kind of maintaining things, you are going to get rid of things quicker. So yeah, that's kind of it's a safe assumption to say that, yes, right now, if you were to go once a month and continue doing the things you're already doing, now there might be more things we could add to what you're doing at home to make that once a month feel even better. Because, just from, what you're saying to me, it sounds like we're lifting a lot of weights, but are we doing stretching? Are we doing some sort of yoga? Are we doing some sort of stabilization work? Yeah. And those are the things that we hear about when we talk to the physios and chiros and all this kind of stuff that, that should be your workout. And it's like, yes, but no, because if we're not strong already, yes, adding that stabilizing work is going to be helpful, but those muscles need to be strong as well. So that way, when we do go and pick up our groceries out of our trunk, we're not throwing our back out because we're not used to lifting 50 pounds.
Right. Yeah, no, really good answer. Obviously, every time somebody comes in, you're going to notice more about that body and say, okay, we can try this and we can do this. And these are the things that you want to do at home. I just like simplifying things. I'm the type of guy who orders all of his meals, right? They come on Saturday. So I know I have this, I go to the gym at this. If my life isn't scheduled, and I imagine many people that run a business, they're looking to try to get time back, and efficiency is a big deal. I want to feel good and I want to get a lot out of my time so I can play hard and be with my people, essentially, is the ultimate goal. Yeah. So injuries have been, now that I've had many, I was going to say outside of being sick, sickness has never put me out like injuries. So they were the big kind of equalizer to shutting me down. When you have a leg that's in a cast, if for a long time, your life changes in a big way, even down to the income you can generate, down to the fun you can have. Your body starts melting. Mine did, at least. It's hard to get to the gym when your leg's in a cast. So at least to know that minimum effective dose, as long as I'm going there, more information can be revealed about myself from you that we can tweak things. But it feels like if I were to say, as long as I go every 3 months or 4 months, that just feels way too long to me. Like do a session 2 or 3 times a year. That feels like an awfully long time in between.
And it is. And more often than not, that's usually not enough. But it depends on that, on the person as well. To even go the opposite direction and go to the 2 or 3 week realm, a good buddy of mine, he's a contractor. He beats himself up all the time. And the way he puts it is he's like, well, I'd rather come see you more so I can have more time at home with my family and work, and you're the person doing my stretching and doing, making my body okay to work. Rather than him taking an extra hour to 2 every day to work on himself physically, he's taking that hour or 2 to spend with his family and go, and at work an extra hour and coming to see me for, 15 to 30 minutes and getting that, we'll call it that minimum effective dose for him. Right.
And I think you gave me this example last time. He sees you like once a week.
He's right now like every 2-3 weeks, basically. Yeah. But I have other guys I have one right now. He's been religious with twice a week. Twice a week. Yeah, it's crazy. But he's a lumberjack. If we talk about beat yourself up, he is the definition of beating yourself up. He's had multiple injuries in the past. And right now, him coming to see me for 15 minutes is twice a week. Again, it's a lot for me as well. But that's keeping him going. And he's not the type of guy that, like yourself or myself, where he is going to go and take off at lunchtime and go hit the gym. he's the type that's going to work from sun up to sundown, because that's when the sun is up. That's when he can work.
Right.
And by the time he's done work, he doesn't want to do anything else.
And I'm thinking, because we talk about hours of physical activity. Again, there's a lot of great science out there. Like, how much do you need a week of this? Should you be running, in zone 2 for 6 hours a week, 4 hours a week? How much strength lifting should you be doing? Is 10 hours better than 5 hours? And I know the quality of that work is a factor in there, but a lot of us want to know, like, if I want to build a good business, have a great love life, feel content and fulfilled, have a great body, and live this way for as long as I can to have that health, wealth, love, and happiness, those 4 boxes checked. There's only 24 hours in a day. So organizing it to some degree seems smart. And when I think about my physical activity, I do a lot of this right now, what I'm doing, sitting in the car, in meetings, and on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm like an hour and a half in the gym 5 days a week. And I'm thinking of that lumberjack. He may be 8, 9, or 10, maybe more hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And I'm talking about coming to you once a month. And what is that? I don't know, 7 hours of physical activity times 4. So you have about 28 hours a month, whereas he's maybe doing 50 or 60 hours in a week as a lumberjack, which is a very physical job. I'm sure he's not cutting a tree the entire 10 hours, but it's probably very physical. So now his dosing compared to mine is very different and requires different therapy from you, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's and to touch on how much you need, it's such a varying science that comes into that. It's like nutrition right now. If you talk to one person, it's going to be, oh, it's all about keto. The next one's going to be, oh, it's a carnivore diet. The next one's going to be, oh, just take these supplements.
Sure.
And it's the same when it comes to the physical activity. Like, I'm a big proponent of listening to your body. And I know for myself, like, if I get one workout a week, it's not enough. If I work out 5 times a week, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
If I'm working out more than that, then I'm changing those workouts. If I'm, say, working out 7 days a week, well, maybe 2 of those or 3 of those are lighter, long walks with the dog and the wife, right? Rather than I'm going real hard trying to lift as heavy as I can,
right?
So it's, and it's all that kind of give and take, like you said.
Yeah. And I think, not to derail this conversation too much, but this is very interesting stuff. And this is why people are going to listen. Listening to the body. And what are you doing at that time? I imagine your baseball season, like, I don't know, what do you guys play, 3 games a week, something like that? And then you probably have your practices, and then you have your work, and there's probably some, physical training outside of practice in the dryland gym. So you're going to be physically active at an unbelievable rate during that time, to say after the season, hey man, let's dial it back to maybe just a couple maintenance workouts a week for 4 to 8 weeks, just chill out a little bit. Probably not a bad idea. So it's not always just you plan the perfect week and you live it forever and be robotic about it. There's diminishing results for that as well. So that listening to your body and building up that awareness with yourself over time, as we age, things change, as events, things change. Right now, for a marketing company, the final quarter of the year is insane for us. Everybody's planning 2025. So I'm doing 4 workouts a week. They've gone down to an hour. So I've gone from 7 to 4. And I'm also not killing myself there. I'm at 70, 80%. So that I can just, if I can grow a little bit, great. But it's really more about maintenance and how the brain feels. Whereas once January starts again, we slow down a little bit and I can get back to that. Because I'm aware of that, I'm not dragging my ass throughout the workday now, because my workouts aren't just squeezing every drop of fuel out of me and then have a 12-hour day, 5 or 6 days a week. So your advice on listening to your body and adapting as things change, I really think is for the win. It's just hard for us to do because a lot of us are unaware of what we need and don't need. And that's why I think these conversations are just so beneficial.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely, as much as we talk about it with, learning how to learn your body, you have to use it to learn it as well.
Definitely.
Right. And it's tough for some people where, like you said, busy lives, all this kind of stuff. And they try, I may talk about learning their body or how much knowledge they have of their body. And they go, James, what the is that?
Yeah.
And it's something where, changing a habit or adding those workouts in does make you potentially more susceptible to an injury. But realistically, you're doing yourself a favor by, if I can learn how to contract my bicep, it's like, well, now how do I contract my quad? How do I contract this muscle? Oh, that's the feeling of that. Okay, cool. Now, how do I use that in my everyday life? When I walk, okay, how do I feel like I'm stable as I walk? Or when we start to get older, how do we balance to put our sock on in the morning? It's those little things that if we start paying attention to ourselves, we can actually, succeed, like physically succeed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love it. Pivoting to you a little bit, I like to do a rapid fire question of just things that light you up. So 5 things. We started off with 1. It was always love my family. Then we did 2, family and business for every entrepreneur that comes on. So we added 3 more things in there to really find out about the human. So 5 things that really put a smile on your face, you look forward to, that just light you up, man. What are those?
Are we talking in business or personal life?
Life in general.
Well, my wife would be mad if I didn't mention her. But, going home after the end of the day it does one of those things that it does light me up. It is, great to come back, see the wife, see the dog, just chill on the couch makes me, it helps fill my cup. We've mentioned it already, but working out is a huge component for keeping that cup full. And then I'm going to put it as a broad category of sports as number 3.
Sure.
But between baseball, golf, and just anything active, whether that's backcountry camping or just hiking, I just love to move. So, it's one of those things where golf has been one of the things recently that's been like, I get really kind of pumped for it.
Yeah.
But every baseball season that rolls around now is like, you get the jitters and you're, excited to go. But yeah, those are kind of the, few things that kind of fill my cup up, and yeah.
Beautiful. How long you been with the Baycats for?
Since 2021.
2021. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're hanging in there for the next little while. Like, is there an age thing? Like, how do you get on it? How do you stay it? I mean, pretty competitive team. You got to be damn good, I imagine, right?
I'm better than most. But I've seen that I'm not as good as I, once thought I was. I mean, I am getting a little older. I'm one of the older guys on our team, at least. Yeah. Average age is probably 25-ish, 26, if I had to guess. But yeah, I was pretty fortunate to get on with them. After the 2019 season, they won, 6 in a row, something like that, crazy. The general manager / head coach retired. And with that, a bunch of guys retired, some moved teams, all that kind of stuff. And so for the 2020 season, there was new management, new coaching staff, all that kind of stuff. So they actually held like an open tryout in Barrie and in Newmarket. And one of a buddy of mine, who's now our first base coach, he's like, James, I haven't seen you sign up for the tryouts yet. And I'm like, well, it's a big commitment. And he's like, come to the tryouts. I'm like, okay, I'll come to the tryouts. And so I signed in 2020, and then we actually had our first official season in 2021. So
beautiful. Yeah. And so I don't know very much about baseball. We all hear about the Barrie Baycats. We love that. They're, I would say, the Barrie's most dominant sport team, right? All together.
Oh yeah.
Like, not just baseball. I'm talking any sport. It's the biggest name sport team in Barrie.
I mean, it is a bit of a hockey town, so a lot of people do know the Colts.
Right, the Colts. Forgot about the Colts.
But between us two, I mean, like, the Colts are we'll call them the up and comings, where it's cool to watch because you're seeing these kids anywhere from, I think as young as 17 all the way up to 22, and potentially they're going on to play in the NHL, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Baycats were already, a semi-pro team where some of us have already played professional baseball. Some are just ex-college players like myself. And there are still some up and coming guys who are college guys that, still can make it to that next level. And it's very cool to watch and be a part of.
So you can actually, the Colts I knew because hockey is the world that I came from, but so you can go to the Barrie Baycats pretty young and still make it to the show.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, a handful of guys that, one in particular right now, he didn't play much last season because just the way the season all worked out, he joined late with us, but I think he was only 18. And he's headed off to college now. And I won't be surprised if in 3 years from now, we're hearing him getting drafted to a particular, an MLB team.
It's just a rock star, right?
Oh, he's just, yeah. And he's got the frame for it. He's got the mindset for it. And it's, so it's one of those things where it's cool on my side because I get to now kind of watch that side of things where I'm like, I remember being, 20 years old thinking, oh, I'm awesome. And now I'm watching these kids and going, no, I was good, but not this caliber. It's crazy.
Oh, I love it, man. I really do love it. I love how involved you are. And it's pretty cool. I mean, pro baseball player. We did have actually, I don't want to get this wrong, husband and wife, both professional curlers, both played for the Canadian team. She won the Olympic gold medal as a curler. We had them on. They own Weedman in Barrie. And I think he went to the Olympics once or twice as well, but she was the all-star for curling at the Olympics at least twice. And I'm pretty sure she won the gold. So we've had a couple of pro athletes on, which is pretty cool. And Weedman's just down the street from you guys. But let's pivot into this question because I did derail the conversation and we're getting close to time here. This question really important. It's about hardships. It's about doing hard things. Everything that you've been talking about, although we haven't labeled this, working out, running a business, the education that it took to get you here, being a pro athlete, all of these things are very difficult and they cost, they have a cost. And often it's a lot of upfront pain and then maintenance pain. It seems like when you're learning a new skill, a lot of pain upfront, it's front heavy, and then maintenance pain throughout it, but for this great reward. I have all my rules for life inked on here so that I continue to try to be the person I'm trying to be. And number 4 is do hard things. So I have found the greatest moments of growth in my life came from the most painful experiences, whether that was put upon me without choice, like let's say COVID is an example, or illness or death. I didn't have a choice in that. But really the most important ones were the bouts of hard activity in some way that I volunteered to go into. Like when you walk into a cold plunge, not the hardest thing in the world, but you're choosing to do that. And I think that's going to give you a different reward than if somebody pushed you in there and you just survived it. So there have been many great moments that when I look back, that was sucked in the moment. And I probably said, I wish I wasn't having this happen to me right now, or I wish I wasn't doing this. When I look back, those moments have been integral to creating who I am now and leading me to living the life I do today, which I really enjoy life. I love what I do. And I think the hard things, if you take them away from me, I don't think I'd be who I am, enjoy life as I do. So we love to ask the guests on the show because we want to be a part of, there's many great people out there spreading this message to embrace hardships, to not push them down, failures, things like that. But they may actually be the win, like fail your way to success. I love that idea. If you're not failing, you're probably not trying hard enough. So we love to ask the guests on the show, any trials, tribulations, hardships that you've been through, that when you look back in hindsight, they probably sucked when you went through it. But when you look back in hindsight, there's no way you would remove that ingredient from the recipe that has become you, because it's been integral to living the life you do today.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's lots that we could probably pick on and choose from, but I mean, to go into, we'll say one, I'll call it a vulnerable story because I don't like sharing it too much, but
sure.
After my first year at college, I had a little bit too much fun in my first year. I was discovering, how to balance being a baseball player and have a social life. And, oh, right, I have to study hard and actually get good grades. I actually lost my academic scholarship after my, second semester. Mm-hmm. And what ensued is that because I lost it, I ended up having to go change schools because I couldn't afford to go to that place anymore. Mm-hmm. Which led to, now we got to try and find a new school in 2 months, who's willing to take me on as a baseball player and a student. And fortunately, I was able to find another place. And fortunately, it was one of those things where I think I traded up in terms of, especially the baseball team, definitely traded up. But it led to another sort of headaches that I went to a Christian university where there was a whole nother level of rules that, we don't have to fully go into right now, but it was a bit of a culture shock, to say the least. Sure. And how that one semester of a mistake of, essentially dropping my GPA too low, now I was battling that as well to keep my grades high enough for, again, me trying to be pre-med. And like I said, I ended in a fairly good spot, but potentially that semester is part of the reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today as a chiropractor, rather than talking to you or somebody else about being a family doc. Right. And those, so we'll call that one of the bigger ones, but again, we'll talk about the little planted seeds along the way. Baseball has been a huge part of that. It's a game of failure. There's not too many places where you can say I was 30% successful and I made the Hall of Fame. But in baseball, hitting 300 is only hitting 3 out of 10, 3 out of 10 at bats. And those are the guys who are doing, the best at the game. Mm-hmm. And so when you learn from that, you have all those failures, or we'll call them micro failures of, I went 0 for 4. I went, I'm in a slump. I'm 0 for 20. And trying to combat that and come back to the basics and just, reassert yourself to the grind. It does make you grow quicker. And one of the biggest things that a coach of mine back in my second school undergrad, Coach Shatsley, I don't know if he's still coaching there or not, but he basically said the hard work you put in now will pay off later. And the way he put it was, our fall program was torture. We were playing, we were practicing 5 days a week to 7 days a week, working out 5 days a week. We also still had to go to school. But the way he put it is, if you were putting in this work now, you're going to get the bounce later. You're going to get the clean hop. You're going to get the call go your way. And I try and kind of remember that one as I go through kind of everyday life, where the grind of sitting at a computer and doing, I'm going to call it the stupid business stuff, is going to be the thing that ends up making that, like, down the road where, because I did that stupid thing, 2 months ago, maybe that's the reason that we're chatting here today and getting another level of exposure. Or, maybe that's the reason I get a referral to somebody who, knows somebody in the Colts organization, where maybe I can treat, a player there, or, I could keep going on with oars, but it's one of those scenarios where the hard work now does pay off later. So, yeah.
Yeah. And to first off, thank you for sharing the story. I if we had more time, I would ask you, like, what do you think was the 1, 2, 3 great things that you learned from that experience in school? I'm sure you have many, but that seemed like there was 2 roads verging, and you took one because of these things. And we would go through a painful experience like that. At first, it may be like, this road is the road for failures, and that's what I'm doing the walk of shame. Yeah. But on that walk, it's like, no, there's a huge leveling up that occurs if you embrace it. Some people do that walk of shame and go downhill, but other people, I've had really monumental moments in my life, especially in hindsight. It's always 2020 when you look back, but those felt like real low points. And I'm like, I'm going through this phase of suffering because I did something wrong. So I'm being punished by it, is the way I was looking at it at that time. But it's like, no, man, I did these things. I made these mistakes based on my decisions. This road is to tell me how to make better decisions. So it's actually, whatever, again, the creator, God, whatever you believe in, I'm not quite sure myself, but it's like you were going down I was going down a path that wasn't in alignment with living a great life. And maybe I'm supposed to do that. I don't know. But eventually I hit a wall and I took a detour to level up is the way I looked at it. If I kept going down that path, who knows what would have happened, but eventually another road was taken and things worked out. So I appreciate you sharing that story. I imagine everybody has something like that. And I want people to look at, especially with business, entrepreneurs come on here and the vast majority of them are either in survival mode or just hovering above or below it. There's only a handful of businesses that come on here that are very profitable, that are growing at the rate that they want to, have a team of people and making a great impact. And the doing the hard things part of business, that's a mandatory ingredient. There's no getting away from it. So it's either like, don't be an entrepreneur, or if you decide to do it, you have to pay. And I suggest you pay up front, because paying in the back end sucks. It's a very painful experience. So, just like your sports, the way you prepare for the season is the way a lot of us could and potentially should prepare for business. Pivoting a little bit, I'll ask you this last question and then we'll get into how we reach out to you guys. What's the best contacts? I don't provide this question in the questionnaire because I don't want people to script it. I only talk about a few things in life, James. Really, a lot of my stuff comes from mentors. I'm like an amalgamation, like a little piece of pottery molded from all of these people. I don't know if I have anything unique about me anymore, but maybe it's because of 50 people created me and now I am my own unique thing. Who knows? But point is that when I was in my early 20s, one of them, she taught me to study broadly, like just learn a bunch of different things from a bunch of different people, find out what you like. And then over time, narrow your path so you can study in depth. Pick your 3-4 things to really get good at them. If you ever want to go near mastery, you want to master something, you're only going to be able to do that maybe at one thing, maybe not even, maybe at 2, but not 100. And I didn't want to be the jack of all trades. So one of the things that I learned during that time, and she planted the seed with me, was my impact. Focus on, I'm born, I die. I know I'm stamped with an end date. I don't know when it's coming, but what does the middle equate to? Like, was it relevant? Was it useless? Did I hurt? Was it a net negative on the planet? Was it a net positive? So all of this is my kind of part of my commitment to me. Like, impact is super critical to me. It's what drives all my choices. And I may not be here tomorrow, so get it done now type of thing. I don't think too much about legacy because I'll be dead. I won't know what it will feel like. Hopefully I leave the world better than I found it after I'm gone, but I don't know where I'm going afterwards. So I want to see the impact while I'm here. And that is critical for me. And I find it fascinating, the answers when you ask that question to others. So I'd love to ask you, what would you like your impact to be, James?
It's a great question. And it's one of those ones where I think I battle with it sometimes where, in the day-to-day stuff, you want people to have a good opinion of you, be like, oh, that dude helped me out. Or, hey, he's just a good human being. And the day-to-day stuff that, obviously will grow over the course of a lifetime. But when it comes down to it, ultimately, I want people to know that I'm there for them, especially in what I do. Is I am there for you every time I close that door, and I'm here now facing you. It's my attention's on you, and that's it. And if that is part of what makes me, a better human, great. But like you said, when it comes to the legacy side of things, like my dad will, kick me if I don't say I'm not always looking out for my family, because he's been a huge part of that, where every little thing that he has done, he's always been looking out for us. And that's one of the qualities that I obviously admire about him, but one of the ones that I want to take for myself and make sure that I'm doing as well, and potentially just articulating it a little better sometimes, where, there were many times where I never understood why he would do X, Y, or Z. But now that I'm closer to the position he was in, I can see why he was doing those things. And it was always in effort to help us. So if that's, where my impact is, that if I'm going to be a little bit selfish, where, I want I want to leave my future offspring and family in a better spot than where I started, even though I started in a great spot.
Yeah. And I think you hit it from, I mean, really, I think the core principle of all of that is be a good human to everybody you touch, whether family or the day-to-day with your clinic and baseball and all that. But really you did this two-prong approach, which I like, is the day-to-day, people walk in my place, try to make them better. Walking out, you've done good. You've made the world a better place in some way. A lot of us look at it as, I just put a smile on her face. It's like, I don't think we recognize how big that can be. That one smile can raise that person's energy, move them away from doing something negative to themselves that they may have. And then they do that to the next and the next. And who knows, that one smile could have touched thousands of lives. We don't need to end poverty to have a big impact. I think we often think of it that way. I think we're all connected in one way or another, touching people across the globe some way. I just don't think we can see the line of sight with that ripple effect. But for you, it's family and, everybody else, essentially day to day, and then family. And I think that's fantastic. At the end of the day, it's being a good human, doing good things. I love that impact. We get that answer a fair bit. And it makes me very hopeful, because sometimes when you watch the news, it's like, what the is going on here? Yeah. But then you ask the question and you're like, no, man, I'm just trying to help people in some way. It's fascinating and very, very hopeful. James, how can we get a hold of you, man? Where's the brick and mortar? What's the number? What's the website?
So we're at 494 Veterans Drive, just across from the new Zenitech building, the new Zenitech car wash. I can't say it's new anymore, but regardless, phone number is 705-726-7701. And you can find us online at Sinclair Sports Medical Center.com. And center is ER, not RE. Thank you, US education. But and then other than that, if you reach out through the website, there's a book now in there as well. There's a contact us page that comes straight to me. So if there's questions from this or any weird questions you have about your human body, feel free to, shoot me an email. I will gladly answer questions.
Yeah. And go in there, check them out, guys. I've been in that place a couple of times. Very welcoming. To have James on here today was a pleasure for me. He's a very intelligent guy, as you can tell. And just get your body right. Go just ask questions. Start there and go check them out. James, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, man. I could have done this for multiple hours, because what your profession is, I am very, very interested in. And I walk away in some way, shape, or form better every time. And my life gets better in some ways, first from knowledge, then from implementation. And people like yourself have helped me get there. So it was a pleasure having you on the show, man.
Hey, it's a pleasure being on it. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Until we chat again, enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, perfect. You too.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpwithjeffandsean.com. That's gnpwithjeffandsean.com, or call 705-413-3775.